Everybody says that belts matter, and everybody also says that belts don't matter. You'll hear things like, bro, there are white belts who have black belts, or belts are fake, or a competition blue belt can beat up a hobbyist black belt any day. I wanted to see what the data actually says. And luckily for us, a data set like that does actually exist from jujitsu.net, which is actual competition rating data across all the belt levels, age levels of anybody who's competed more than 4 matches in the IBJJF in the past 4 years. If you want to see the exact numbers, I'm going to link my article and data source below, but I'm going to conceptually go over why belts are not clean categories, but rather overlapping skill ranges. A lot of people will subconsciously picture the belts something like this, where they're discrete buckets or like separate buckets of skill, where there's white belts here, blue belts here, purple belts here, like perfectly separated islands of skill. Human performance almost never works like this. In sports and chess and academics, any sort of skill is more of a continuous spectrum. So here's the graph. Every curve represents the distribution of ratings at a belt level. The peak is where the average competitor is. The width shows the spread of skill. And where the curves overlap, that's where things get interesting. So for example, when we look at this overlap between the white belts and the blue belts, we get this area. In the data, this area represents 30% of all white belts and blue belts. And what that actually means that if you're looking at 2 random people who are not wearing their belts, 30% of the time, you genuinely would not be able to tell if that person was a white belt or blue belt. So you wouldn't be able to know if that was like a really good white belt or let's say like an underperforming blue belt. In general, you'll be able to see that among all the belts, there is quite a bit of overlap. Now, there's not a lot of overlap between white belt and black belt, and that kind of makes sense, right? Because there's not a lot of white belts who could be mistaken for a black belt. But you can see that there is an overlap between blue belts and black belts. And this is the, whatever it is, like 3 to 5% of very competitive blue belts who've been training for a long time, who are able to beat quite a few of, let's say, like more hobbyist leaning black belts who aren't as focused on competition. You can see that there's a big overlap between blue belt and purple belt, like right here, right? There's a lot of overlap between purple belt and brown belt right here. And there's a lot of overlap between purple, brown, and black belt right here. This should make a lot of sense just based on our observation of people in general, right? There's not a magical moment where someone suddenly gains blue belt powers overnight. The skill changes gradually, but the belt changes in a single moment. There's a lot of reasons for the types of overlaps that we see. People who compete, some people never compete. Some coaches promote very aggressively, some coaches take forever. Of course, this data that we have isn't perfect. It is skewed towards competitors, but competition is one of the only places we can get a cold, hard comparison between 2 athletes. The data set does cover over 19,000 competitors over the past 4 years, and that's way over hundreds of thousands of matches. The important thing here is not really the exact numbers. What I wanted to show is that there's a very broad pattern overall that's very clear, which is that belts overlap a lot and way more than most people think. And so while belts are categories that we use to kind of approximate where someone is in their journey, it's definitely not a prediction of who's going to win every role. And so belts definitely matter, I think, statistically, right? Blue belts on average are better than white belts. And so the next time you see a white belt giving a blue belt problems or a purple belt smashing brown belts, that's not evidence that belts are fake. That's just exactly what overlapping skill distributions are supposed to look like. If you like this kind of conceptual, data-driven breakdown about jiu-jitsu, feel free to let me know in the comments, and thank you for watching.